Good afternoon. This is Mike Mahoney, local real estate agent here in Boston with the Keller Williams Company. My group, the North Compass Group, tries to educate people in the marketplace as to market stats, recent market activity, new listings. I also try to provide an educational means for folks going through situations in their lives. And on that vein, basically what I've done today is I've organized a conference call with a local divorce attorney, Edward Wayland, who has expertise in sort of managing that process for people who are going through it. And so I get a lot of questions about what are the options with real estate and divorce, and it's a complex thing, and I can only provide the real estate specific information. So oftentimes I have to go out and seek consultation from the experts. And Ed Wayland happens to be one of those experts. He's definitely a great source of information, and he's a very great attorney. So what I want to do is let you know that we'll have a little podcast down below that you can listen to. And Edward Wayland and I go over some scenarios. Each situation is going to be a little different, but it certainly will provide some insight. By all means, if you have questions specific to real estate and divorce, reach out to me and I can connect you to Ed, or call Ed directly. He's got his number right in the podcast, and I'll have it down below. So thanks so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike Mahoney, the owner of the GreaterBostonVoice.com, a real estate blog here in Boston, Massachusetts, dedicated to all things real estate. And our tagline is clarity in real estate. And with me today on the call is Edward Wayland, and Edward happens to be a divorce attorney. Hello, Ed. Are you there?
Yes, Mike. How are you doing?
Great. Thanks for coming on. So the reason I wanted to get you on the line today was basically because in the past month or so, I've had several new clients come to me as a real estate agent asking me, what are our options with the property we own, because we're going to divorce, we're going to separate. And no one's really hostile at this point, but they just wanted to know what their options are.
Sure.
So I know that this is an area where your expertise has been for a long time, and you handle both, probably civil divorces, right, where people are actually civil, and you probably handle some not so civil divorces, right?
Yes, every once in a while people are civil, indeed.
Indeed. So what would be the option for a couple if, let's give you example one. Example one, I have a couple who they've been married, let's say 5 to 7 years. They own a property, there's equity in it, and there's no children. What would their options be? If, let's say that, one of them just want to move on, and one could potentially keep the house, but the other one wants to get the cash that they think they're due out of it. So how does that work?
Well, you say there were no children in this example?
No children.
No children. And let's assume they both contributed equally to the property, because that's something that, especially in those short-term marriages, that gets litigated sometimes. Someone claims that their parents paid the deposit, and there can be some back and forth about that. But assuming that they both contributed equally to the deposit, and they've both been contributing equally to the mortgage over the 5 to 7 year period, if one of them wants to keep the property and the other one wants their cash, then the solution is the outline of the solution is pretty straightforward. Actually making it happen can be sometimes contentious. But the idea is that the person who wants to stay in the property would have to refinance the mortgage in their own name and pay half the equity, half the value that's above and beyond what's owed on the mortgage to the person who is leaving. And I say it can get contentious in practice because, as you know, as a real estate agent, the value of a property is a slippery concept. There's always a range as to what the fair market value of a property is. And determining what that value is can be somewhat contentious. Typically what's done is people get a certified real estate appraiser to look at the property and give an opinion. Sometimes both parties get one and they take the average of the two. Sometimes people are satisfied just to have a broker like yourself eyeball it and give a quote as to what it's worth, and they go to the bank with that, and they see if they qualify for the loan to pay them off.
My guess is where it gets a little tricky is that the person who's trying to get the money wants the house to be worth the most.
Exactly.
And the person who's getting the mortgage to hold the property after the fact wants it to be worth less.
Right. And
at least for this purpose.
Right. And everyone has an agenda when they're estimating this property. The brokers have an agenda into getting the listing if they think it's going to be a listing.
Right.
If you go to a real estate appraiser, I find that I really have to tell them I want the real number, because otherwise, they want more business from me. If they can guess who I represent, they'll be trying to spin it in a way that will make me happy.
Mm-hmm.
And you're really going to emphasize we want a fair price for this property.
Right.
So it can be hard
that
to
one
do.
seems, in theory, without people and their personalities, pretty straightforward.
Yeah, that's about as simple as it gets. No children, short-term marriage. It's pretty clear as to who contributed what. And the only thing you're trying to do is figure out what the value is, and can the person who wants to keep it qualify for the loan to buy out the other person.
Okay. Now, you've used the word short-term marriage, and in this example that I proposed, it was 5 to 7 years. What's considered a short-term versus a long-term or mid-term even?
That is exactly what a short-term is. I'd say 7 years or less, or some people might say 6 years or less, is considered a short-term marriage. Medium-term, about that 6 or 7 year period to, let's say, 15 years. Mm-hmm. And above that is considered a long-term marriage. Mm-hmm. And that's relevant in terms of how the court approaches the division of assets. When it's a short-term marriage, the goal is to put people back in the position they would be in as if it never happened. So, sometimes the end result can look the same, but that's just how the courts look at it. Suppose these people never got married, how can we put them as close to that position as we can? Medium-term marriage, there's been more mixing of assets, people have been together longer. And this is a sliding scale. Divorce is not a science. They look more at the partnership that's been in place over the years and who's contributed what and what it was worth in reaching a division. Long-term marriages, it's basically a 50-50. That's the strong assumption at that point, and they'll divide everything at that point. Also, things like inherited assets. Short-term marriages, they will, in general, leave those with the people who inherited them. Long-term marriages, in general, they will divide them, because after a certain number of years, it becomes a marital property.
Mm-hmm. So again, there's all these variables that the years in the marriage is definitely going to play out for sure.
Yes.
Okay. And then I have one more scenario, which unfortunate but true. I have a couple who has elementary school age children. They have been what I would say a midterm marriage. The kids they've been married probably like 12 years. They have first and let's say third grader, I think, about there. They've been in their home for 10 years. There is equity. The gentleman feels as though he's got a lot into it. He doesn't want to, he wants the property sold because he wants to get financially set, if possible, or get some of that equity that he's built. And I guess her position is, I just want to keep my kids intact and keep them in the schools and the place they've been. So how would you approach, or how does someone approach a situation like that?
Well, it's a difficult situation for him because the courts would like the children to stay in that house as well, if possible. And this is, as I say, marriage is not a science. It can be very messy, and different judges will view things differently. But if she cannot afford to, let's assume she's going to get custody, which in practice mothers usually do.
Mm-hmm.
The court's going to want those kids to have as stable an environment as possible, to have the standard of living that they're used to, and if she cannot afford, after that, let's say hypothetically this house is sold, or she can't afford to refinance and pay him off, they're not going to make her. Especially if he can afford to give her enough support to keep her in that property. So I've seen cases where the courts will say, yes, father, you're entitled to, X dollars out of this of equity in this property, but mother can't afford to refinance. She can't afford to buy a suitable place for the children, but she can't afford to just stay put. So until those children are emancipated, she's going to stay there, and your equity is going to stay tied up in this house. And they will make the non-custodial parent wait to get paid until the children are emancipated, or at least until they're, college age, which are two different times. So, in that situation, it depends on a lot of factors. Can she make a living, and is there like a babysitting situation that she can rely upon? And there's so many things that go into it. But in general, if she cannot afford to refinance or go out and buy a suitable place for those kids, he may have to watch his equity just sit there.
Mm-hmm. So I've actually seen that where, so the court would issue a divorce decree, and in the decree it would have that. Is that right?
The decree would say that the last time I did this, we actually gave him a mortgage so that she couldn't sell it or do something with the property without him being notified or him getting his teeth into it. But
he became a lien holder against that property.
A lien holder, exactly.
Yep. And
he just had to wait until the kids were emancipated, or until she was able to afford to refinance. And very often someone who's been raising kids for 10, 12 years is not going to go out and get the kind of job that's going to make it possible to do that, especially if the kids are still young.
Mm-hmm.
They still need attention.
Right.
So, and the children's care is really the court's priority. They don't, not that they don't care about the parents, but the priority is to make sure that the kids are provided for and their lives are not disrupted if possible. So.
Right. So tough luck for him, but works for her.
Yeah, I hear that a lot from fathers in that situation, that it's so unfair. But it's not that the mother is the focus of the courts, that they want her to live well.
Right.
It's the children, and if she gets custody, she benefits from that focus.
So that's just two examples. I'm sure there could be 400 different permutations of the same thing.
Right. There's a lot
of everyone's going to be different.
Right. There's a lot of patterns in divorce work in terms of, as I was saying, short-term, medium-term, long-term marriages and how courts approach each case.
Mm-hmm.
But every single one has got some twist or turn or quirk that makes it unique. People have inherited money, or they're got special skills, or one party has contributed more than the other to the down payment. There's always something.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can't just look at the general pattern and say, if I get divorced, this is exactly what's going to happen. You've really got to lay out all the facts to a divorce lawyer and get an opinion.
Okay. So I know we could go on for hours, and I could run all different scenarios by you, because I've sold a lot of homes, and I get a lot of questions. But it doesn't sound like we'll be able to solve any of those problems today. So How would someone reach you, Ed? What's the best place to get you as an attorney if they just wanted to just chat over the phone and get a consult?
Well, I can give you my phone number,
That's great.
which is 617-720-4300.
And that's your office number.
That's my office number. My law firm is Perry, Krumsick and Jack.
Okay.
And they will connect you if you call during business hours to me between 8 and 6. If you go to our website, you can reach me through the email, which I can give you as well.
Okay.
But
Why don't you
really
say it
best-
out loud for our listeners? But I'm going to also put links to you, and I'll put your information in this entry on our website.
Great.
But please share whatever you can.
It's Wayland. It's EWAYLAND at pkjlaw.com. And either way, I mean, I'm very reachable by phone or by email.
Great. And I
most
do
of the
know
time.
that because we've done some work together, and we've always exchanged
Yes.
questions and answers.
Yep. Sometimes at odd hours, but
At odd hours. That's right.
in this day and age, that's how it goes. So,
That's right. So
yeah.
I appreciate your time today, and I hope this was helpful for the visitors to my website, thegreaterbostonvoice.com, and looking forward to doing another one of these sessions. So thanks, everyone, and have a great day. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.